This is a day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. It is a pleasure to see everybody today. Being summer, we always have people that go away, and it's always great to have them come back. Since some of you do take vacations. We are continuing our lesson on things that we can learn from God's smallest creatures. We are midway through. 2 weeks ago, we looked at ants and their idea of preparedness, how ants prepare for their future by collecting food daily, and that we as Christians need to prepare every day for our future when Jesus the Christ returns to claim his bride. Last week, we looked at the rock badger, which dealt with habitation. The rock badger builds their home in the rocks to protect the herd, to protect the family from predators. We, as Christians, need to be preparing for our eternal home. And I don't know how I missed it last week. Matthew 7, and I want to read verses 24 through 25, through 27 this morning. I've got 25 up there, but it actually goes through 27. But it deals with Jesus is the end of the Mount, what we call the Sermon on the Mount. And he is talking here to the people, and he says, "Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like the man who builds his house on the rock." And I don't know how I missed that last week, okay? "And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall, because it had been founded on the rock," which of course is Jesus. "And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell. And great was the fall of it." Life is filled with disappointments and struggles and hard times and the ever-present devil who is trying to get us to fail. Do you see what Jesus is telling us here? He uses these terms that his audience could understand. He is referring to a house. So he used house terms like rain falling and floods coming and winds blowing and beating on that house. But it stood firm, it stood tall, because it was founded on the rock. Jesus is telling us that all of the struggles in this world thrown at us are nothing if we are founded, if we are set firm on Jesus. We must follow Jesus every day. Going back to today's lesson, Proverbs 30 is our scriptures that we're following for these 4 weeks. We're going to pick up verse 27. "4 things on earth are small, but they are exceedingly wise. The ants are a people not strong, yet they provide their food in the summer. The rock badgers are a people not mighty, yet they make their homes in the cliffs. And then today the locusts have no king, yet all of them march in rank." We are going to study the locusts as it refers to their cooperation among themselves. They have no king or queen or leader, but look at what they accomplished together. Kathy and I don't know how long ago it was, a year or so, maybe even longer, watched a documentary on herd mentality. And it was very interesting to watch, at least for me. I think she was bored with it. But I'm sure that you have seen a huge flock of birds rising up out of a field. And one will turn and the whole flock turns. And it's like they're following, a dance lesson or whatever in the sky, and they all fly together. Have you ever seen them collide? How in the world they don't collide? I don't understand. But they have that, what they call a flock mentality. And that's what they do. This herd mentality occurs in the world's oceans as well. Here, the ocean biologists call it a school and not a herd, but the same idea exists. And it's kind of hard to see it in this light, but right there is a scuba diver with this herd of school of fish swooping down towards him. That just reminded me of a story. Well, not a story, but an event. I was scuba diving on the jetties in Panama City Beach at night, and sharks come out at night. And a school of fish, all I saw was this silver blur next to me. I sucked a whole tank of air, you know. And what it was just a school of fish, but their silver side, to me, I saw shark. But anyway, it wasn't, luckily. I'm sure you have seen videos of a herd of wildebeest grazing when suddenly they start stampeding and the whole herds follow suit. You never see a group of them standing off to the side talking and say, hey, where's everybody going? You know, what's happening? No, that herd mentality is somebody in the herd saw danger and started running, so the rest of the herd follows suit, because usually there's a lion, you know, close by, and so to save themselves, they run off as a herd, okay? And that's what it's about. The herd mentality is a tendency to follow what others are doing rather than make an independent decision based on your own information or judgment. It shows up everywhere in financial markets when investors pile into the same stock, in social settings when people adopt opinions they haven't thought through. Have you ever done that? Follow the herd when you haven't made your own decision, but hey, everybody else is doing it, so it must be good. You know, I'm going to follow suit. Online, when viral content shapes what millions of people believe. And I'm seeing this more and more with social media and the internet and everything else. Hey, all these people are doing it. It must be good. Let's do it. You know, the pull to follow the group is deeply wired into human psychology. And understanding how it works can help recognize when it's influencing your own decisions. At its core, herd mentality operates through a simple logic. What other people's actions count as information. If a large group is doing something, your brain treats that evidence as that the group might be right. Economists call this an information cascade. You observe what others choose, you update your own expectations based on their behavior, you update your own, and you end up following along even when your private information might suggest a different path. Social media has supercharged the conditions that produce herd behavior. A large-scale analysis of more than 100 million pieces of content across Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, and Gab, covering conversation topics like gun control, vaccinations, and abortion, found that platforms built around social networks and news feed algorithms actively encourage the information of echo chambers. Facebook and Twitter have the strongest patterns of people following what other people believe. On Facebook, users cluttered into clearly separated groups based on their existing beliefs, meaning the information you see is heavily filtered by what people like you already think. So if a group of people have this idea about this topic, they're going to advertise that and get more people to follow it. Whether you believe it or not, everybody else is doing it, so I must be doing it. You know, I don't want to be left out. On Reddit, which I don't know anything about that, this segregation has much weaker user participation. Not to mention all video shorts being posted on Facebook that are all out lies. They appear genuine, but if we research it, you will find that it is a lie. Give you two examples. A couple of months ago, I saw a video where the Navy's North Pacific Fleet was sailing up between Japan and China. And they had videos of China firing missiles on the Pacific Fleet. And we retaliated and took out all their missiles and continued to fire into China. That would be an all-out war. I looked it up on news channels. There was nothing. It was fake news. I saw one last week where President Trump was being shoved into his SUV by two Secret Service agents. And they said that Trump had been shot, probably mortally. I go back to news, which there's a lot of fake news out there anyway, and there was nothing. We saw him, 2 nights ago, doing a speech. He was fine. But when you look at the video, you think it's real. The way they produce it now with AI technology, you can't tell hardly what's truth and what's false. It's hard to tell unless you really look at it. And I've seen some videos on how to determine what is false. But most people are not going to do that, and so they're going to take it and go and run with this information, and be guided to where corporations want you to believe, because this is what everybody else is doing. We've got to be careful with that. I understand my next comments might hit the chord with some people, but I'm going to just relay the facts that I have found in studying this herd mentality. Herd mentality has a complicated relationship with public health. On one hand, the instinct to do what others do can encourage health behaviors. A UK study of only 543 adults found that explaining the social benefits of group immunity, essentially framing vaccination as something that protects the greater good of the community, increased people's intentions to get vaccinated. Framing a health behavior as collectively benefiting tapped into the same social instincts that drives herding. People tend to follow the herd and not ask why. And like I said, when the wildebeest starts running, they don't stand around and ask, hey, why are we running? They do it because it's life-saving. And we, as humans, have a tendency to do the same thing. We want to follow the herd. We want to be accepted. We want to be, socially accepted by our friends and our, whoever. And so we follow the herd. Other doctors and scientists are telling us that the bad side effects of the vaccines, like it was never tested. It was produced and put out there for everybody to use, but people were following the advice that it was good for the community, and people fell in line. Locust swarms can vary from 1 square mile, so 1 square mile, a mile by a mile by a mile, okay, that could be a swarm, to over 100 square miles. Go 100 miles that way, 100 miles that way, come together. That's a lot of territory. A large swarm of desert locusts can consume 20,000 tons, which equals out to 40 million pounds of vegetation in one day. What does 40 million pounds look like? Imagine, if you can, 10,000 cars parked bumper to bumper, door to door. That would be 40 million pounds. Or let's take the elephant. We talked about them last week, being cousins to the rock badger. Okay? Take 2,500 full-grown elephants. A swarm of locusts could eat that amount of weight in one day. Consider what damage was done across all of Egypt by such a small creature when it was united by God in droves. The whole country was devastated after the 7 plagues before the locusts flew into town. Imagine, if you will, the force that the church, that was founded on Christ could have on this earth if they all were gathered together as one united body. No wonder Jesus prayed in John 17 that we must be one as he and the Father are one. This week's homework, read John chapter 17. I'm only going to pull out 4 verses, but the whole chapter is his prayer. Verse 20, John 17. I do not ask for these only, but also for those who will believe in me through their word, that they will all be one, just as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. The glory that you have given me, I have given to them, that they may be one even as we are one. I in them and you in me, that they may become perfectly one, so that the world may know that you sent me and loved them even as you have loved me. Put aside silly and foolish differences for the sake of Jesus Christ. Locusts have no king, no ruler, no leader. They can work together without fighting for position. People should not seek fame or position or authority in the church. The kingdom is for people who are looking to promote Jesus Christ, not themselves. Jesus gathered 12 disciples. Not one of them was appointed as the group's leader. Look at the diversity of activity in the early church. Peter preached the first sermon. James pastored the first church. Paul took the gospel to the Gentiles. John received the end-time revelation. Stephen was a deacon and the first martyr. God is all about his people working together as a family. You'll like this one, Alex. Today's lesson is on cooperation, which is the theme that we are looking at. It destroys competition. A plague of locusts wreaked havoc in Nebraska, Iowa, and Kansas in 1874. In less than a week, they did well over $10 billion worth of damage. After their attack, every single plant, was reduced to a barren stalk, stripped of all of its leaves and buds. They need not have a king in order to order them to do this. They know they are stronger together than they are separated by one another. You are a team player for the bigger picture of heaven and God and Jesus. Or are you a single-minded player only looking out for yourself? It is about cooperation, or is it about competition? Paul tells us about how we are different, but yet we belong to one body, and that is Jesus. In 1 Corinthians 12, verses 1 through 11. Now concerning spiritual gifts, brothers, I do not want you to be uninformed. You know that when we were pagans and were led astray to mute idols, however you were led. Therefore, I want you to understand that no one speaking in the Spirit of God ever says Jesus is accursed. And no one can say Jesus is Lord except in the Holy Spirit. Now these are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are varieties of services, but the same Lord. And there are varieties of activities, but it is the same God who empowers them all and everyone. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. For to one is given through the Spirit the utterance of wisdom, and another the utterance of knowledge according to the same Spirit. To another faith by the same Spirit. To another gifts of healing by the one Spirit. To another the works of miracles. To another prophecy. To another the ability to distinguish between spirits. To another various kinds of tongues. To another the interpretation of tongues. All these are empowered by one and the same Spirit, who apportions to each one of individually as he wills. Wait, read. I understand the locusts don't have a king or a ruler or leader, and that they follow the herd mentality in finding food and surviving together. But we have God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit as our leader. Was Agur wrong in the writing about the locusts? No, he wasn't. He was talking about locusts not having a king to lead them, and look at what they accomplished as a group. He was talking about locusts doing what it is that they need to do to survive. We, on the other hand, do have God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit to lead us. We are not left to our own doings or our own understanding. God leads us, but it is up to us to follow His commands and teachings. You can imagine what the church would be like if it was all up to just us. Ants, we look at preparedness. The rock badger, about their habitation. And today, locusts, at their cooperation, how they work together. The locusts have no king, yet all of them march in rank. Next week, Lord willing, we will look at the lizard. And I haven't looked into it yet, but I'm sure that's going to be a hard one to come up with, a lesson on lizards. But we'll see what we do, what I can find. If there's any way that we can help you this morning in your walk with God, let us know. Let us help you.